as Elizabeth said, I work for New York State Department of Health. I work in the Center for Environmental Health, and we do fish advisory outreach and also set fish advisories for New York State. Some of you may have seen a version of this presentation. It's definitely been part of the Dog and Pony Show this summer. And so if you have, thanks for your input, because we probably tapped you for questions. A little bit about the Fish Advisory Program in New York State. DOH is the agency that actually issues the fish advisories. We've been issuing advice for over 40 years, and we work really, really closely with DEC. DEC is the agency that collects samples, analyzes, QA/QCs the data, and then they pass it on to health. Our toxicologists go on and make decisions about the health advice. The purpose of the advice, theoretically, right, is to reduce exposures to chemicals found in fish while balancing some of the benefits that you get from eating locally caught fish. Up until this past year, we had about 100 advisories. We've been going through a lot of changes. So for spring 2024, there will be approximately 140 waters in New York State that do have specific advisories for chemicals. The most common that we still find are PCBs and mercury, as well as PFAS is becoming a little bit more prevalent. The Adirondacks and the Catskills are generally more affected by mercury in New York State. And so how does DOH set advisories? We use a risk management approach. So that means that we use chemical guidelines in addition to various other factors like quantity and quality of data, species of fish. We consider trends over time, and again, balancing the benefits and the risks. There's been new guidelines that have recently been issued in about the past 5 years, I'd say, for PFOS, PCBs, and mercury. And we work very closely with the Great Lakes states to try to align our guidelines so that they are pretty consistent across borders. And you can find out more about how we set advisories on our website. It's available at this /background URL. And of course, we have special considerations for the sensitive population. Who is the sensitive population? Anyone who can become pregnant, more or less under 50, children under 15. It's not because children are just little humans that they are considered in the sensitive population. They have different metabolisms, and chemicals most definitely affect them more than adults. Many of the chemicals that are found in fish, especially PCBs, for example, can stay in the human body for decades. So it's really important that the sensitive population follow the sensitive population advice. Some of these chemicals can also pass on to babies and through breastfeeding, so it's important for people who are planning and can become pregnant to follow that advice as well. Everyone else can follow the general population. DOH is pretty consistent with being protective. So it's not that you're chop suey, it's just that you don't have the same developmental endpoints as little children do. We do a lot of work trying to reach anglers in our programs. Advice is obviously available online. We have lots of free brochures and different materials that are aimed towards anglers in many, many different languages. We distribute them fairly widely through our mailing list to different municipalities, parks, libraries. We work with fishing organizations and try to target anglers and their families. And then we also work with I manage the Hudson River Fish Advisory Outreach Project. Thomas is my coworker. We do a lot of outreach along the Hudson River corridor, and we also fund local organizations to help us do this outreach. It's 400 miles on both sides of the river, so it's a bit of a ways. And so we try to go out to community festivals, county fairs, fishing and hunting shows, and we try to engage with anglers as much as possible. And this has really led to improvements in our outreach materials in the past. A really basic primer on the advisory structure that we've historically followed. Specific advice is issued for waters with higher levels of contaminant in fish. These waters typically have more protective advice for the sensitive population, and then some sort of limitation for the general population. It can range from 4 meals a month to 1 meal a month to a don't eat. Historically, if a specific advisory was issued, it would just be a flat don't eat for the sensitive population. The general advice applied to all the other waters that didn't have specific advisories. That previously was you can eat up to 4 half-pound meals a month of any fish from those waters, and that advice was for the entire family. We've been moving towards a new approach, however. In 2021, DOH updated our mercury guidelines that we used to set advisories, and we began a 3-year project to apply the guidelines across the state. Now, that half sentence is literally like another 3 presentations, so I don't want to underappreciate the amount of work that went into this, but I'm going to stick to the risk communication side of it. The new guidelines are more risk-based and more consistent with the Environmental Protection Agency and the Great Lakes states, and the benefit is that the approach generally allows the sensitive population to eat some of the fish that have lower levels of contaminants. So in 2022, we updated the Adirondack Regional Advice. Previously, there was 65 specific advisories just in the Adirondacks. It was pretty overwhelming. Through this process, we were able to reduce the number of specific advisories to 16. And now, again, the sensitive population can eat from all of these waters. They just have to limit some of the fish. And the Adirondacks is pretty affected by mercury. As you can see in the regional advice, the max amount of meals that we recommend for the sensitive population is 1 meal per month. And yes, you will notice a walleye on the bottom of all of these charts. In 2023, we updated the Catskill Regional Advice. The advisories more or less remain the same in number, but again, now sensitive population can eat more of those fish from those massive fisheries, which is actually really great news. The Catskills is also affected by mercury, but not quite as badly as the Adirondacks. There are more choices that are 4 meals per month, especially for the sensitive population. Then we started applying this process statewide, and there was a lot of statistical work, there was a lot of data cleaning, there was a lot of analyzing the data to see whether we needed to set up additional regions. It turned out we didn't, we just needed a new statewide advisory. So this essentially replaces the general advisory, and it's not because the fish have gotten particularly worse, it's because we have updated our guidelines to be more health protective for mercury. Previously, they were not as protective for the general population and probably actually a little overprotective for the sensitive population. But this was like a huge paradigm shift for our outreach program. We've been doing outreach for a decade and a half at this point, and especially with the work that we've done on the Hudson River, which is it's a big don't eat for the sensitive population, the entire stretch from Forever to New York City. So that's a Debbie Downer when you're out in front of anglers and they're like, okay, so where can I eat the fish? So we did a lot of work to try to find quote unquote better waters and encourage people to just fish from those waters and follow the general advisory. It's a very simple message to get on board with. The new approach, however, it's not where you fish that really matters, it's actually what you catch, because now you have to refer to a table essentially, even in those better waters. So it starts to get a little bit complicated. There was also things that we really didn't know before going into this process. That included what species of fish are people really eating. It never really mattered before because it was up to the angler, right? 4 meals a month of whatever, we didn't care, go for it. We didn't know really how much they were eating. Our advice is based on an 8-ounce portion size, but if people are eating a 4-ounce portion size, technically you could double the amount that we recommend. And we didn't really know how often they are eating it. Again, the advice is based on, consistently eating throughout the year, but obviously anglers have preferred seasons. Some people might ice fish a lot, some people might only be eating during the summertime. So we conducted an online angler survey with the help from DEC. This went out to licensed anglers, and we actually got about 8,000 responses, which I was shocked. So thank you if you're one of the people that answered this. So we have a little bit more data now. How often do you eat locally caught fish? Much like the Hudson Valley, where we have pretty consistent data for, I just got my 5-minute warning. A couple times a year is the most common answer. The three top fish, yellow perch, trout, and walleye, are the most popular. Not really a big surprise there, and we just lump trout together. Most people are eating 8 ounces. Trout streams are very popular, and coastal waters, ocean, Adirondacks. There was actually a strong Long Island contingent that answered this. So we tried to incorporate these angler preferences into the final statewide, but there was a trade-off that happened because we still had to be protective. So that means that for some of these species, like yellow perch, you'll see additional specific advisories have been issued. So the new statewide advice is this table. It's not 4 meals per month anymore. So we're working on making this as easy as possible for anglers. But it's not easy. It's pretty complex. We're asking people to look in many different places. So we've really been trying to keep this in mind. So we've been working towards avoiding a choose your own adventure, which is what it started to feel like at some point. And we really want to keep that in mind because there's a lot of newcomers in New York. There's a lot of people with literacy challenges. And there's additional considerations, especially for some of our Burmese populations that live in New York because they are high fish consumers. So we need to make sure that they are getting the advice and that they can actually follow it. The Burmese population strongly preferred our 4 meal per month Better Waters approach, but you know we're working with an additional group in Syracuse to do more focus group testing. So we've done outreach improvements. We're trying to streamline the materials for anglers. We're trying to do some of that work for them. We're updating our color-coded county maps, which also show tributaries, because this is not something that's like usually listed in the advisory tables. Anglers have to figure it out for themselves. We've done a lot of brochure testing, so thank you if anyone was involved in that. It's been really interesting, and I think that we've come to a good point. So we're moving our regional brochures to a by fish approach, which is kind of new. And we're updating our website based on angler feedback and hoping to do searchable by county and by alphabetical listing online, maybe eventually by fish. And so stay tuned for March, April 2024 when a lot of the info is going to come out. And if people are curious, I do have like a sneak peek of what the website's going to look like. I'm happy to let people click around on my computer because it's not like live yet, and give feedback if you guys are at all interested.
All right, we have a few minutes for questions, so go ahead.
Anyone have questions on the process, on why?